Bounty hunting is a complicated profession. Don't you agree?
The Cynic Radio Podcast.
Hi, I'm Chad L. Coleman, Tyrese from The Walking Dead, and Cuddy from The Wire, and you are listening to the Cynic Radio Podcast. Here are your hosts, Cynic.
Hey, the facts are Spider-Man belongs in the MCU. Sony was delusional thinking they didn't need Marvel, and now he's back. And we, the fans, are 100% proudly responsible for that.
Agree?
As long as DC wants to make dark and gritty movies, they're going to lag behind Marvel in every category.
And Ryan.
Batman vs. Superman is objectively better than Infinity War.
This is the greatest show of all time.
One of these days, we'll get around to updating that opening. I mean, it's only like 3 years old at this point. This is episode 176 of the Cynic Radio Podcast, and I'm your co-host, Cynic. And joining me, as always, my personal friends, Igri and Ryan. And on this week's show, we were discussing Season 3, the finale of The Mandalorian, entitled The Return. But before we do, I'm really excited to get into this one. However, I just want to take a second to talk about the fact that our last week's show, the last show we did, which was a review of John Wick, was one of our most downloaded shows ever, especially in Germany. And that's right, folks, I said Germany. So I want to take a second to thank everyone that listened and downloaded the show and obviously told their friends. I'm extremely excited about that. We've seen increased listenership in Germany, in Spain, and a few places in Europe. So I want to thank our friends for listening, and we'll do anything we can to continue to turn out content on a semi-weekly basis when I'm not being lazy. So it's been a few weeks, boys. Some of it has to do with you guys being on vacation. Some of it has to be do with me being preoccupied with doing other things. But let's talk about what's happened over the last few weeks. We got to see Bo-Katan rally everyone together. They united the Mandalorian people. We found out Moff Gideon's still alive, and in fact that the remnants of the Empire are more, not remnants, but a cohesive unit rising back up to threaten the New Republic. Ryan, they said it. They said Thrawn. We got the name drop. I mean, the pieces are all moving together. Could a showdown with the Grand Admiral himself? I mean, do you think this show, Ahsoka, do you think we might be headed to like a Marvel-esque showdown with this iconic villain?
Well, yeah, it seems like that's where things are headed. That Thrawn is like the big bad, and it does seem like they're taking these various shows, and there will be one big kind of team up at some point. But I think we'll see Thrawn definitely in Ahsoka. I don't know if you had a chance to see that trailer. I probably sat and watched the Ahsoka trailer 10 times. It's so good. And just in that trailer, you get to see the back of Thrawn, and that moment was like goosebumps. And they did, I think Thrawn was mentioned, I think at the end of Ahsoka mentioned him, I think in season 2 as well at some point. So it's awesome that they're taking this character it's been great because he was kind of a legacy character who was amazing, who everyone loved, who then shifted over to the Disney version of Star Wars and is still a great character who everyone loves. So I'm excited that it seems to be coalescing around Thrawn as being like the big bad.
IG, what can you tell us about Thrawn? You are our Star Wars resident expert.
Well, they kind of did the whole name drop and title drop thing because they were talking about Heir to the Empire in the Ahsoka trailer. And that's where he first showed up. It was a book by Timothy Zahn called Heir to the Empire. And it was a trilogy of books and probably the first real good stuff that came after the original movies came out, right? It was, I think they came out before the prequels. I'm almost 100% positive they came out before the prequels. And it's something that a lot of people were hoping the next Star Wars movies were going to be. They were really well written, and Thrawn was shown to be basically a tactical genius. Like he was a mastermind and able to like turn almost certain defeat into victories for whatever he was doing. And it was a really interesting read and a lot of fun and everything. And that's where he came from. And when they called it Heir to the Empire. That was a direct nod to his books, and it was really exciting. And especially when you talk about Thrawn, that the Empire has notoriously been very racist, I guess is a good term, where they only want basically humanoids, right? They don't want calamari or anything. If you look at everything that's going on with even the First Order, but all of the old Star Wars movies, everybody is a person, right? They don't have aliens like the Rebels do. So to have somebody that's running around with blue skin and red eyes and things like that, he has to be someone special. And I think, getting to something like that, he certainly will be something very special.
You spoke about the Ahsoka trailer, Ryan. What stood out for you? Because I thought it was amazing as well.
I mean, what didn't? Everything. I mean, the music was great, but I think that's kind of like you have these trailer houses that know how to make the music work. Like I said, I mean, seeing Thrawn just for a second in live action was great. Just seeing the whole team. I love seeing Chopper, and Hera and Sabine. Like it's like you had Rebels, which I really enjoyed, and everything that was pulled from Rebels into live action worked. Even in the Mandalorian, there's a little cameo of Zeb from the Rebels, and he looked great too. So I just felt like that the trailer the whole thing just got me hyped up for it and excited, and it feels like it's got the right tone. And again, hopefully it's not just the trailer messing with us and we don't get something bad, but like I just love it. And I think Rosario Dawson, it's like you have, I think there was always a bit of not controversy, but I know that Ashley Eckstein, I think, played her in the animated series.
Voicing, yeah.
And there was this question of some of the fandom wanting her to keep it, but it's like you have Rosario Dawson, who is a movie star, and she just owns that role. And as much as I think we all love Ashley Eckstein as Ahsoka, like you have a movie star in the role, and you couldn't have somebody better for it. She's amazing, and it just looks great. So it's one of those things I'm just super excited for.
One of the things I've worried about was she was never a physical actress. Like she's a great actress, but she moved a little clumsily when we saw her in The Mandalorian. But in that trailer, she had it. The lightsaber technique and everything we saw looked fantastic. So I'm really excited about that. I kind of can't wait. One of the things that bothered me in the previous episodes, not to get too deep into those, but the fact that Moff Gideon escaped and nobody seemed to know. Like, he is the highest ranking member of the Imperial army that is in captivity. IG, do you believe that he would just kind of wander off and nobody would know the better?
Like, they were taking him on a ship somewhere, right? And, we know that they have ways to communicate like that is faster than the ships can travel. So they didn't call ahead and tell somebody, hey, we got a ship coming. He should show up sometime Tuesday around 4 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And Wednesday comes and he's still not there yet. And nobody's out looking. Like, come on. Like, they are better than that. And even when the X-Wing pilot went out and found the blown up ship, it's not like he even knew what was supposed to be on that ship until after some more investigation. So he wasn't even looking for it. He just kind of came upon it. Something seems it's a little bit of plot armor just to try and make it seem a little more devious than it needed to be. It could have been like, hey, we got to report the Moff Gideon ship got attacked. Go over here and see what you can find out. And that would have been just as good, if not better. So I think that, knowing that they probably would have called ahead and told somebody that we're on our way, that's a problem that they didn't go that way with it.
Yeah, I mean, even if they ran undercover with it, somebody from the New Republic would have noticed that he didn't show up. That bothered me a little bit, Ryan. Did irk you as well?
I mean, my take was more that it was like a cover up. I think my take was basically like he was was taken, and the New Republic, for whatever reason, decided to cover it up. I think there's a lot of issues I have with the storytelling for this season. I think there are a lot of things that kind of just got glossed over. And that was one of them. For somebody that important, there would be, he would not have been captured without a massive battle and a conspiracy. And you wouldn't be able to make, there wouldn't be a conspiracy large enough or small enough to contain it. So I don't buy that somebody of his stature would have been allowed to just be on one transport by himself and captured, and the New Republic wouldn't know all about it, so that bugged me. But again, throughout the season, I think there were some issues of kind of writing writing things to meet whatever the need was, and so then it feels kind of manufactured at times.
Yeah, it just makes you wonder if the guys have their hands in too many pies at this point, and let's hope that that doesn't continue, because so far I've had very, very few complaints about any of the episodes of The Mandalorian or any of the stories, really. I've enjoyed it all, and I did have a problem with some of the episodes that we saw. IG, the Moff's plan worked perfectly. He gathered all the Mandalorians together in one fell swoop. But there was rumors floating around that he may have had a mole within the group, like he does on Coruscant. Did you hear any of those rumors? And did you have a guess of who it might have been?
I heard a bunch of rumors about that, especially because like there was some things like the episode before was called The Spies, right? Plural. And basically we saw the one
I think it was
spy.
the spy. I don't think it was plural.
No, it was plural.
It was plural?
Absolutely.
Oh, wow.
So that was one of the reasons that people are like, well, we got the one on Coruscant reporting back to Gideon. Who are the other spies? Right. So it turned into people were saying maybe it's the armorer. Right. And that's why she's like, I'll take these people back to the ship, and she's going to go up there, report to Gideon, and like make things happen. Some people were saying Axe Woves was maybe a spy. Some people saying maybe even Bo-Katan was the spy. I didn't think that anything other than the armorer really seemed like a good option. The armorer, because they're always so cover of night, doing things their own way, and everybody answers to them, would have been the best option if it were one of the Mandalorians or one of the people that were still on the planet, like Skinny Pete, hanging out on the planet. If they were a spy, like, anybody comes in, we're going to like corral them in and bring them right where we want them so they get hit by the ambush. That would have been a good option. But I was thinking if it was true that one of the Mandalorians was, the most likely one would have been the armorer.
What's the name of those red guards? They're
Praetorian.
Okay. Ryan, that's what life is, a series of down endings. We lose Paz Vizsla. The Praetorian guards take Mando hostage, but he is saved by and all the Mandalorians are on the run. They're all scattered. They're running. It's things look bad all over. Din Djarin is rescued though by IG Grogu, I guess we would call him. I'm not quite sure. Afterwards, Din Djarin kind of runs through a gauntlet, which is sort of reminiscent of the Phantom Menace, while R5 does his best R2 impersonation, opening the doors as he defeats each person. I mean, I'm a big fan of fan service, but the amount of callbacks, does it hurt the storytelling, Ryan? I mean, fan service is fun, but do you think the reason that this particular fandom, Star Wars, is slow to take to brand new concepts is because we have so much of it in every story?
I like the fan service this season. I'll tell you why. So last season, right, we got probably the two biggest pieces of fan service you could possibly get in Star Wars, or very close to it. Luke Skywalker and Ahsoka, in one season, right? Okay, maybe Vader, if we had gotten that, but obviously we couldn't get that in this show. But we got it in Obi-Wan. But right, last season you get Luke Skywalker, you get Boba Fett, and you get Ahsoka. So three pieces of the biggest fan service you could possibly get in Star Wars. So this season, you're not matching that, right? Like that was one thing. I was like, I hope they don't try, because there's no point. Almost nothing we will ever see in Star Wars is going to match, Luke returning in episode 8. And so what I liked is that they sprinkled in a lot of fan service, but it was very subtle. And I don't feel like anything really detracted from the plot. We got the Purgle at one spot, and then, the like space whales. And then we got, the mouse droids, and we get all these little pieces of fan service. I think the Ahmed Best cameo is probably the biggest piece of fan service we got this season, and it was great, and I think everybody really was happy about that. So I like that this fan service was sprinkled in, and I never felt like it was gratuitous or overwhelming. So I actually liked that what we got, because I was afraid they were going to try to do something like, oh, you thought Luke was good, wait until you see this, and then it would just fall flat.
Yeah, I mean, it made sense where they added it. It just seemed like there was a lot of it. We keep bringing back IG-11. Suddenly R5 is R2. We have a gauntlet fight reminiscent of Phantom Menace. So sometimes I feel like, I would like some new concepts. And I honestly... Go ahead.
We got new with The Last Jedi, and everybody crapped on it. So, but be careful what you wish for.
Could this be why? Well, I don't know if it was. I don't know if it was that or the just distinct U-turn from the previous movie that we just saw, and we're just going to take it all and throw it out the window and start anew midway through a trilogy. But we won't get into that now. IG Star Wars has always kind of made us feel like the Mandalorians were like the Jedis. They were all but extinct until the show The Mandalorian came around. They were just scattered. But let's talk about the visual of them all flying in mass towards the battle with Moff's forces. Despite the naysaying going on throughout the season, do you think that the Mandalorian story was an important one to tell? And do you think we'll get more Mandalorian content in the future?
I think it was important to tell. I think, knowing why they're scattered and knowing some of the things that happened, because it was multifaceted, right? Obviously, the Empire came and did things to Mandalore, the Night of a Thousand Tears and blowing things up and everything. But, they also talked in the series about the infighting that always happened between clans and stuff like that. So it's very similar to kind of some of the stuff that happens with the Jedi as well. And quite honestly, a lot of places in the world. I mean, politics is just infighting between whatever parties are applicable, no matter what society you live in. Like, it's the same here as it is in England, as it is in Germany, as it is everywhere else. If you have more than one party in a somewhat democratic type of place, they're gonna fight. And I think it was just interesting how they went about it and explain some of the stuff. And they didn't beat it to death and throw us in flashbacks and have like all kinds of episodes, like just focusing on the political aspect. Like that was one of the big problems with the Phantom Menace, right? Was like, let's have a movie about like what they do in the Senate chamber. That'll be exciting for Star Wars fans. Kids will love that. I think there's going to be quite a bit more Mandalorian stuff. What I think they did at the end of this one was allowed it to basically soft reset itself into going back on adventures, right? Going back with the lone wolf and the cub and going that way. So we finished out this storyline. There are other players that we've had inserted that can come back and can come in and go out without having to explain where they're coming from. But we get to go back to Mandalorian doing his Mandalorian thing, Din Djarin being Din Djarin.
Ryan, for once, oddly enough, the fans had it wrong. It wasn't Snoke that Moff Gideon was cloning, but himself. Most narcissistic move ever? Some of my ex-girlfriends would probably disagree. But he was trying to maybe make some Force enhancement clones of himself. So I got to ask you this. If you could make clones of Ryan George, what trait would you add? I mean, you both have an impressive skill set, but what would you add on to it?
Ryan George would add height.
Do I get to add power, or do I?
Sure.
Okay.
Fire away, because you're both going to answer this. I'm interested.
All right. I like force powers, or like I could give myself any power.
Any powers.
All right. Teleportation, and be able to fly and reach escape velocity.
Well, as long as you're
and be able to breathe in space. No.
All right. As long as you're not reaching for too much, I guess.
We'll say teleportation. That would be my power.
IG, I'm guessing it would be the ability to eat as many peanut butter cups as you want and not gain weight.
That's a top gainer right there. I think even better than that would be the ability to just have as many peanut butter cups as I wanted at any point. They just appear when I want them. That would be a fun power to have, right? I mean, I probably wouldn't live long if I didn't give myself the additional power for like not gaining the weight or having adverse reactions to them. But yeah, peanut butter cups. I don't honestly know. Like, I don't know, some way to slow aging, I guess, would be one of the bigger things for me. I've turned mostly gray already, and it'd be nice to keep a little bit of color in the hair and not get too much older, too much faster.
Well, they do make products for that if you really are interested in doing that.
Yeah, the beard's hard to dye. That's the biggest problem.
Well, you don't want John Cena making fun of you at the end of the day.
That's true.
Ryan, the final battle begins between Din and Moff, only to be interrupted by the Praetorian Guards as the Mandalorian seems to be a little overwhelmed. IG-11 plus Grogu leads the way. Were you a fan of the concept of the little fella being inside the robot, or was it very too Kang in concept?
I did. Or you mean Krang?
Krang, yeah, sorry.
So I did think of Krang. I loved it, and I'm glad that it was destroyed. So I thought that it was a brilliant use of kind of language for him because he didn't speak his first words, but he got to use the no and yes to speak. So that was cute, and it worked, and it allowed him to communicate and gave him some more agency and more to do. I was afraid that was going to be overused. Right? Like, he had a toy out of this, and he's going to be in this stupid thing all season and next season, and I was not looking forward to that. So I was glad that it was destroyed. So yes, I both loved it and happy that he will likely not have use of it anymore.
Although I think he only knew where the no button was, though. He hit that one more than anything else.
Yeah.
But he did nod an affirmative at one point.
That was actually a really. I love that was the way it was written, because it's clear now we know he understands what they're saying. He can communicate, and that was a situation where he could have hit no, and it would not have been as effective as him nodding. Like him nodding, you felt it. That was one of those moments you really felt in that show when he's like, yeah, you're gonna have to be brave, and he nods in agreement. I totally think that was the right choice there, even though he could have just pressed yes.
IG, the exoskeleton down 3-1 odds against the little fella. Were you afraid that he might have been overmatched because Din was totally being moth blocked?
Yeah, I thought that maybe I didn't think they were going to off him. Obviously, losing Paz Vizsla, I guess he's a tertiary character in the show. Really important, really cool, but not front line. So I thought maybe he would get hurt. Maybe they would go a little bit further, but instead they kind of let him have the Yoda treatment, and he can bounce around on top of the rafters and, trip people up and do other things. And I think it worked. I wasn't quite as afraid of other things. I honestly thought going out of episode 7 into this one that they might completely pivot the Mandalorian show into being a Bo-Katan show and kill off Din Djarin. I was way more worried about Din Djarin dying than I was about Grogu.
Well, we didn't get into it in the end, but we didn't get our customary, hey, there's there's Pedro Pascal in the Mandalorian suit this season because he wasn't ever fucking there. So, there was even articles after that, why didn't we see Pedro Pascal? Oh, because he was never on set. Yeah. So that's a problem going forward. And I don't know how he's going to balance these two hugely successful shows. But I mean, should we recast the Mandalorian if he's never going to be around?
So I guess that's where we disagree on this a little bit, because I know ever since the show started, you were talking, you wanted to see more of him out with the mask off. I'm okay with it. My only question is, at some point Grogu gets a helmet, and once he gets the helmet, he can't take that thing off, and obviously he's going to. So does Din change at some point? But I'm okay with him. He acts well in the mask. I love his voice acting is really good. I will say I watched The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent with Nicolas Cage and Pedro Pascal, and he is such a great actor. And he's so emotive, and he's such a great he just does a lot of great work with his facial expressions that it is kind of sad we don't get him, but he's also kind of a stoic character anyway. So it's not like we're seeing a lot of range out of him even when he has the mask off.
No, we're not. But I mean, with him sitting around the camp at the end, not to jump to the end, but when he was due to take his mask off, but they couldn't get him on set to do that.
That's fair. No, the one thing I will say is I don't know. I thought I read something that he was on set for one episode or something like that, but I think it was a CSI episode. But other than that, I don't. Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with him with or without. I'd rather not recast him though. I'd keep his voice. If it was between that and recasting him and having him
if it's a timing issue, he can do all of his voice recording in a day because he's only got 4 lines per episode. He can show up in an afternoon and record all of his lines, and have the people that have been in the suit just continue to be in the suit, and that's fine. And I think, I guess they could recast him in a way that somebody who sounds like Pedro Pascal or can imitate the way he sounds shows up, but I don't think that's fair to Pedro Pascal. I mean,
Yeah.
he's probably not going to make his money doing just voice acting for the show as if he's showing his face. And I think that was part of the reason that they made him show. He made them show his face in the first couple of seasons was pay scale, right? Because he was going to get paid more if his face showed up because now he's in it and he has to obviously be there. And maybe because now he's got The Last of Us, he doesn't need the money or care about the money as much anymore.
It's quite possible. Ryan, we get to the final battle where it takes all three of the heroes to take down the battlesuit-clad Moff Gideon, while Axe is dropping on top of Axe dropping the capital ship on him. Was Moff Gideon the big bad that Star Wars was looking for? I mean, and do you believe he's going for good?
I don't know. I hope he's gone for good at this point. Like I love Giancarlo Esposito, but like we've had him. He's been the big bad 3 seasons in a row. We're good. Let's get somebody else. He's a great villain. I thought I was mixed on him this season. He's a little too much monologues and kind of mustache twirly, villain, and made some dumb decisions. So in that way, it's like I didn't love it, but also like he's a narcissist and full of himself. So I guess I could see it. He was a fitting villain for the show. I would like to see them move past it, and I think all my complaints aside from this season, I do think that they're setting the stage for next season to be, something new and something fresh, and we get something, another villain or a new person or new big bad for them to face off with.
Funny you said the right phrase there, the mustache twirling villain.
Yeah,
because there was one rumor running around after this that says maybe the Moff Gideon that they fought was a clone because it didn't have a mustache, and if you look at the other 2 seasons, he always had a mustache.
Okay,
so I think he's gone too, but Star Wars and Marvel and everybody else in these big properties seems to find ways to not kill off anybody permanently. They find ways to be able to bring people back because like Gamora should be gone, but obviously she's in the new Guardians movie, and they find ways to keep things going the way they want them to go. So I'm hoping like there's a whole universe of stuff to do for Star Wars. So do they need to stay with Moff Gideon, who was basically created for this show? No, like they had that whole like chamber of people that they could pull from for future villains. So I just thought it was funny because like I did see one rumor about maybe that was a clone they were fighting because he didn't have a mustache.
That's funny.
Djarin adopts Grogu as his son, becomes a gun for hire for the New Republic, and settles on Navarro. Ryan, what was your MVP, your favorite motive, and your rating for the show?
For episode or show?
For the episode.
Episode, okay. The MVP, it's got to be Din Djarin for the episode. I thought I like, although I'm going to say Din Djarin and Grogu. The reason why is because I think that the show basically shifted from being about Din Djarin and Grogu, which it's supposed to be, and about Bo-Katan. And so this episode finally pivoted back to them. And what I loved about them is they were a team. When they were fighting the Praetorian Guard, they fought as a team. And I love that. So when we were talking about that scene with Grogu, the easy way out would have been the doors closed. And when the doors opened back up, Grogu was kind of standing there and the Praetorian Guard are all down, and he's used the Force to defeat them. And in reality, he didn't. But he and Din Djarin worked together. He was using the Force to knock the weapons away. He did it against Gideon. He did this great Force slide. So I think that, Force push with the slide. But I think that duo worked great together. And what made me excited about this is that in the future, we get to see them work together as a team. And I think Grogu gets more to do. So I'm actually excited about them action-wise, that they get to work together. So that would be my favorite, the MVP. Favorite moment has to be Bo-Katan flying into the fray with Darksaber in hand. That just looked amazing. You have the Mandalorians flying down. You've got the stormtrooper Mandalorians flying up. She's got Darksaber in hand. The armor is next to her with her weapons. Like that just looked amazing. So my rating for the episode, I give it a 9.5. So this episode was easily the best episode of the season. It had everything. It was a really exciting episode. Again, it had stuff with Din and Grogu, which I was missing all season long, or not all season long, but most of the season. The action was really good. It continued to have the action, and everything's looked amazing all season. But Din, his hand-to-hand combat looked great. There was still some cute stuff. You had the moment with all the mouse droids attacking R5. Still some cute stuff with Grogu. You felt like so it felt like somebody was in peril, like something bad could happen. Like Ig said, I felt like Din could go this episode. Who knows what's going to happen? And so that the emotional beats actually hit this episode, which wasn't necessarily hitting as much throughout the season. So definitely give this episode a 9.5. It was a great episode, one of the best episodes of the series. I mean, of the series. I just Gideon a little too mustache twirly, but I did like also that they did pay off what he's been doing this whole time, like what's been his end game, which is making these clones, which is totally unexpected. So it was kind of nice to get a payoff to something that I didn't even know I wanted to pay off to. So, yeah.
I'm right there with MVP. Din and Grogu, especially this episode. Coming back, basically showing like what a purely trained Mandalorian can do. I love going through that hallway with the different things, like different stages. Like, John Wick, we have Din Djarin. He's just as good going through some stuff, and like he caught the first two by surprise, but the rest of them knew he was coming, had time to prepare, and still couldn't stand a chance against him. And I thought, and that's probably my favorite moment of this episode, because I don't want to piggyback everything off of Ryan. Like, it was really cool watching Bo-Katan with the Darksaber, which I'm actually glad that got destroyed. I'm hoping they don't rebuild it and do anything else, but that's a whole different issue. For the episode, I guess I'm right there pretty close. I'm at a 9. And I guess I'm basing it on the series as a whole, because there are some 9.5s and 10s, I think, in previous seasons, not in this season. But this is probably, like Ryan said, the best episode of this season. It was a lot of fun, and I'm glad. One of the reasons I'm at a 9 is because I think they reset it, and I'm hoping that, and my understanding is there's at least one more season, probably more than that, of this show. And it's reset now, so they can go back to the stuff that we really loved, where he was going on missions and picking up bounties and meeting different people and doing different stuff. And that's what keeps it exciting for me. And now that, like, he's going to be trying to train more Grogu as Din Grogu to try and do Mandalorian things, we're looking at a new Mandalore, basically, because the original Mandalore was a Jedi, right? And Grogu's going to get trained as a Mandalorian who's already had Jedi training. I'm excited. I think there's a lot of room to go in many different directions in coming seasons. So, yeah, I'm going to give it a 9. I really enjoyed it.
We really did hit the big reset button, and I agree with you guys on the fact that this was by far the best episode of this particular season. But if I'm being honest, part of our absence was not just guys being on vacation and moving parts, but my uncertainty about how I felt about the season. But the last episode really kind of jump-started it for me. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I'm a huge pop culture junkie, but I refuse to come on here and give negative reviews, especially about Star Wars. There's plenty of that out there, so you can go find that. There are a lot popular shows, and a lot more popular shows, and probably a lot better and well spoken than I am. So it's easy for me to kind of remain silent and wait rather than impulsively spew things in the moment because I don't agree with the direction of the show. They completely turned that around in this last episode for me. This was by far my favorite episode. The final battle was everything that we needed, and I absolutely loved it. I love the fact that it was a team effort to take down the very dangerous Moff Gideon, who was not only a fully fleshed out character, but he was physically and strategically a threat. And I'm not 100% sure that he's gone. He was my MVP. Listen, you guys could say it was mustache twirling, but I loved the smack talk. I loved him taunting Bo-Katan in the moment because he had already bested her. I love the fact that he had beaten Din Djarin down in one-on-one combat, and I love the fact that it took all three of them to take him down. I mean, we didn't see Body in the episode, so I'm not 100% sure that he's dead, but you guys said it might be time for us to move on. The season was, for the most part, nonstop action. The battles were intense in the very last episode. So I'll also give this episode a 9. I can't wait for Mandalorian in season 4, since now we know the direction of the show, because a lot of us were uncertain what's going to happen next. Is it going to be the Bo-Katan and Friends show, or is it going to be the Din Djarin show? So I'm glad we got some answers for that, and I can't wait to see what happens with these characters that I've grown to love next. So that about wraps up episode 176 of the Cynic Radio podcast. You can find us all at the socials at Cynic Radio. Any questions, comments, or concerns, or if you just want to say hello from Germany, you can find us at cynicradio@gmail.com. Until next time, IG.
Don't get captured.
Follow the podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and at cynicradio.com. Available for download on iTunes.